Hi, St. Petersburg in Russia, Venice of the North, as many love to call it. It has been on my list for a long time, and I was eager beaver to visit it. So last year in October, I have decided to have my annual December vacation over there in order to see the New Year celebrations and also to visit three renowned museums. And so I have started to prepare my stay over there, including car, hotel, and flight book. Not speaking Russian was no obstacle for me at all to be over there, bearing in mind that I was going to meet a friend of mine. On top of that, having a rental car in the city makes one independent of the public transportation. At the end of November, it was clear that a political crisis was up in the air. It was too late to cancel the trip. And so with my love to adventure based on calculated risks, I have decided to go on with the trip unless the flight was cancelled. At the end, I have arrived there. So let us let the cat out of the bag and stop beating around the bush and see how it was in St. Petersburg. So, the trip started on the 31st of December 10 a.m. by taking the flight from Frankfurt International Airport to Amsterdam and from there to Volkova Airport of St. Petersburg. I arrived there around 4 o'clock afternoon. St. Petersburg has 2 hours time difference regarding Berlin. After having picked up the rental car at the airport, I arrived at the River Palace Hotel at 10 o'clock evening. It is located in the famous cultural island of Vasilivsky. The Sylvester celebrations were already going on. As you can see, the room is very clean and the beds are very comfortable. I was already exhausted and fall asleep, which why I couldn't see the annual show of fireworks. After I woke up, I rushed to the window to have a look at the city. It was a Russian weather par excellence. The Neva River was totally frozen, holy moly. At breakfast, I could see that I was one of the few people who wear a mask, and that I was the only tourist in the hotel. It is needless to say that this hotel has had guests from all over the globe. In the afternoon, I headed to the Vasilastrovska metro station to meet Natalia, a friend of mine. We had a long walk toward the city center through the Verjavoy Square and Hermitage Museum. Make sure to have the right shoes when you visit here in winter, otherwise you could injure yourself. At the Verjavoy Square we could have souvenir pictures with Peter the Great and his wife. Rest and have a look at the fantastic view there. At the Hermitage Museum, the New Year atmosphere was very special. Beside the outstanding, shining and historical building of the museum, It was the joy of the people which makes this day so special. It was also here where it became clear that I am maybe one of the last tourists in the city. And in fact, I didn't see any tourists here. Yet, I was very delighted and happy about that. After the Hermitage Museum, we headed to the city center. It is also very beautiful here. And while walking there, we searched for a restaurant to have a dinner. We decided to go to the Katyusha restaurant. The name couldn't be more bizarre than that. As you can imagine and see, this restaurant has nothing to do with weapons. But rather, we enjoyed the Russian dishes we had. Serving meals with caviar seems to be normal here. All in all, I recommend this restaurant for the excellent service and delicious food. So after all the walking and the dinner, we were tired and headed directly to the nearby metro station. And as you can see, it looks very neat. On the following day, the 2nd of January, I intended to visit the Hermitage, Cosmonauts, and military museums. We headed at first to the Cosmonauts Museum, where we were told that the foreigners are allowed to enter only if they have Russian vaccination certificate. Well, it was already clear that the Cold War has returned back. So I started to think it was better to keep low profile while I was documenting my trip. So instead of that, we had a long walk around the island, where we visited a historical prison named Trubetskoy. One of the things which I appreciate in St. Petersburg are the wide streets, which makes driving there more comfortable. Traffic rules are being respected here by everyone. At night we have decided to visit the circus on the following day. So I have booked 2 tickets on the mobile phone via my credit card. It was so simple and easy. Nowadays such a transaction is not being offered because of the SWIFT disconnection.
Олімпіада, всі артисти, Дед Мороз і клоун по...
After the show, and while entering the car, I played this song. I was astonished and happy to see that some childs were dancing in front of us. Natalia kept her door open for a while and was amused by the scene. On the last day but one, the 4th of January, I headed to the Galleria shopping mall to see how is it like to be in a mall in St. Petersburg. Well, it is like any shopping mall here in Germany or any elsewhere in the globe. You would find Russian and English signs everywhere. While walking around, I couldn't resist taking one of these bottles along a piece of cake as a big snack. After that, I have taken a seat and enjoyed my little meal. After exploring the mall for some time, I went around 1 o'clock to have my lunch. As a big fan of Asian food, I was happy to find an Asian restaurant there. The meal looked very delicious. I appreciated a lot the small portion of rice. I get always double of that size and I don't even consume half of it. After the lunch, I drove back to the hotel to prepare my bags for the flight on the next day. On the last day, the 5th of January, I slept late. Upon that, I drove across the city, enjoying the background music and thinking about my long journey back to Germany, which was scheduled to start at 10 p.m. evening. And that I was going to have a connection flight in Moscow, I planned to visit the Red Square. After a late lunch, I headed to the Pulkovo airport. There I couldn't resist tasting the Moscow cake. It was sweet, too sweet. At 10:15, the flight to Vnukovo airport of Moscow started. From above, St. Petersburg looks very beautiful. While bearing in mind that the flight to Moscow lasted about 2 hours, I felt the huge size of Russia. I was thinking up till my trip to St. Petersburg to visit South America and Africa. But this trip made me aware of the various touristic, cultural and historical destinations in Russia. After landing, I had 3 hours time to go to the Red Square and come back. So I take a taxi instead of the bus and headed directly to the Kremlin. It is simply magnificent. After my short visit to the Red Square, I immediately returned back to the airport by the bus. The trip from the Red Square to the airport took more than 1 hour. And now I was thinking about my strange flight back to Germany, which instead of being direct was going to be through a transit station in Istanbul. Finally, I really enjoyed being in St. Petersburg. It was a fantastic time over there, in the New Year time, full with unforgettable memories. I would recommend St. Petersburg very warmly for anyone who likes vibrant, historical and beautiful big cities. This was my second time in a country in East Europe during the New Year time. The first time was in 2018, where I spent 2 days in Kiev. I look forward to revisiting St. Petersburg in the future in one summer, and also other countries in East Europe. That was my trip to St. Petersburg. Thank you for watching, and so long.